Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of The Cheap Seats. This is your Premier League show where we talk all things in the Premier League. We're going to talk about that tackle that some Manchester United fans think isn't a red card. We're going to talk about Mo Salah missing gimmies in penalties, and we're also going to talk about possibly Arsenal doing the business against probably what I thought would have been the toughest opponent they would have faced because Fulham look really strong and they look very scary. But there's 11 games to go, Kent. 11 games to go, one game at a time. We've got the guys here to talk all things football. But before we
Congratulations on the
start,
Premier League title, guys. How does it feel?
we have not won anything. We have not won anything. We're just going, taking the time, moving one game at a time.
I think the engraver already has ARSE already engraved onto the Premier League trophy. It's just like doing the bits by bits, like through the next couple of games.
Can you let me tell you what classic shirt I have today? Because it's all about somebody counting the chickens before they hatch. So remember, our show is sponsored by Classic Shirt ZA. So please go check them out. Use the discount code CheapSeats99. The shirt of the week. I was going through their website, like, what am I going to show? I don't know what else. We've shown all the retros. We've gone Liverpool candy. We've got Manchester United, everything that Wahid has. Then I was like, wait, what is this?
Everything that Wahid has.
So this is a lesson in the engraver, not putting anything. But he could have started with the first three letters. He just needed to figure out, or Manchester, he just needed to figure out whether it was City or United. But on the day, it ended up being City. So I thought if you're a City fan and you were a City fan just after this, you can go on Classic Shirts and actually get the kit of the first Premier League title that they had. I'm sorry, Wahid, I chose violence. I didn't know that you were going to talk about the engraver. So sorry, bro, but how does it feel to see this?
I've never watched that goal again. Honestly, I saw it once. I cried like a baby, and I've never watched it. I've never ever watched that goal again.
Okay, not even through the highlights
no. If I see it coming on TV, I'll make sure I change the channel. If I'm like out in public, I'll turn away. I've never watched this thing again.
Jean, what do you think of this early edition Manchester City kit? Is it good for those City fans?
That's like the first thing they ever had. Like
this is the best moment City have had in the Premier League, bar none. That's the moment they arrived. It's the moment, like even post that 6-1 humiliation of United at Old Trafford. This is, I think, the moment where City basically said, "Now we're one of the big boys, at least Premier League wise." And Martin Tyler's commentary will forever be iconic in that particular moment. Even though I'm not the biggest fan, but it's even for any neutral or non-City or United affiliated fan, this was absolutely gigantic. So, I mean, yeah. You're a City fan, I can only imagine.
Kent, who did you want to win on that day? Who did you want to walk away with the title that day?
Oh, of course, Manchester City. I just can't. By that stage, United were just a different level of shameless, and it was. we thought there'd be some humbling, but I think Ferguson kind of bounced back pretty soon after that. But I think we all quite knew what we bought. It might be the league next year. Yeah, but it might be the dawn of a new era, or with City from there winning like 6 or 5 more titles. So yeah, I'd rather that than United having 1 more titles. But I was going to just say probably the best conclusion to a Premier League season. But it's up there with the 1989 Invincibles and then 1989 Arsenal Liverpool game and this game, yeah.
Okay, cool. Remember, you can go get this kit if you're a City fan or just a football fan at Classic Shirts today. Use the discount code CheapSeats99 just to let them know that we sent you. So please do that. You can go to their website and also check out their Instagram page. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel as we go along. But today, this past weekend, the team that lost 7-0 2 weeks ago, or over 2 weeks ago, decided to come back They were looking for a revenge game, that Southampton at home, and you thought, yes, this could be it. They're coming back. They're not gonna let that go. And then and then something really dramatic. Okay, I don't think it was dramatic. United fans think it was dramatic. There was a tackle that should have been a straight red. It didn't need to go to VAR. I don't understand why it went to VAR, but anyway, Casemiro decided to gift United something. And so the question I'm asking today is, did Casemiro cost United the top 4? He's been great all season. Great all season. Some United fans think he's the best defensive midfielder in the league. But that's not the case. Anyway, red card, he's missing 4 games. And I'm going to start with Wahid, but obviously those 4 games has one FA Cup, but it's Brentford, it's Newcastle, and it's Everton. Has this guy cost you the top 4, Wahid?
Well, it's very hard to say because I don't think we'd be in this position without him. But by the same token, that was reckless and unnecessary in the situation of the game. And to lose him for 4 games, I could see us dropping points, which could not necessarily cost us the top 4, but it could drag us into that top 4 battle very easily if we drop points a couple of times these next 4 games. Which means that it's almost like a double-edged sword. Without Casemiro, we wouldn't have been in the top 4 conversation. But now, because of Casemiro, we might be drawn out of the top 4. It's such a weird situation. But having said that, Casemiro has been phenomenal, and I know I've been saying that we should be able to cope without him because there's certain players who have been very, very good in the midfield, like Fred. But it's now not just the fact that we're missing Casemiro; it's that we're missing Casemiro and we're missing Eriksen, and we're a bit thin behind that, and we're missing Sabitzer. So we're going to go back to probably a McFred double pivot, which is not the best and not what you want to see at this point in the season. And I did say a couple of weeks ago when someone asked me, they said, I think it was Dean who said, are United in the title race? And I said, absolutely not, because we are a couple of injuries or suspensions away from being very, very, very bad. Sort of like we were last season, because the first choice players are very good, and we've got a very, very good first choice 11. And our first choice 11 can go toe to toe with just about anybody, as we showed against Barcelona. But the problem is what comes behind that. And what comes behind that is last season's team, which is very average. So, yes, Ten Hag has repaired the spine of the team, and that spine is really good with Varane, Martinez, Casemiro, and Bruno. But one of those players goes, as we've seen, and it becomes very average. So, yes, I do think we could be drawn into a top 4 battle now if we drop a couple of points over the next couple of weeks.
But Kent, they are 8 points away from the team in 5th position, which is the team they are 6 points away from the team in 5th position. That's Newcastle, and obviously Liverpool are sitting there in 8th, sitting there 2 points behind. 8 points behind Manchester United. Do you think those teams can cover, or are we just assuming that? Oh, is it a given that we assume that Manchester United are going to drop points?
No, I think we had this conversation with Dean if he thought how Spurs' top 4 hopes were, and I think at the time they were only 5 points or 3 points off Newcastle. It just seems like the teams that are fighting for that 4th spot have just not got enough consistency to show any sort of proper charge or throw themselves into the contention. United has had really good consistency for a while, and I guess it's just been stumbled slightly. Dropping 2 points against Southampton, I felt was they still did well to at least get some points out of that game. Playing against 10 men for 60 minutes is tough, even though it is at home and against the bottom of the league team. But I just think United will have enough to keep 3rd, at worst, maybe come 4th. I just fail to see any, like Spurs. I guess they fought
comfortably better than them, aren't we? Like if you just look in terms of pure quality, and we have to assess this. Like United are comfortably the 3rd best team in the league. Like City and Arsenal are clear at the moment, and United are quite clear of the 4th place. You just worry about injuries piling up because Erik ten Hag seems to be a person who, and Ajax fans warned us about this. He has an 11 and he sticks to that 11. and he doesn't deviate much from that 11. And the problem is when injuries crop into that 11, it starts to unravel them a little bit. And in his last title-winning Eredivisie season, they almost came stuck towards the end because he didn't want to deviate from his 11.
Yeah. I love how you are going into Reddit pages of Ajax fans or Twitter streams with Ajax fans warning Manchester United about this man that they let go. Okay, that's top tier research. Jean-Emile, your team Liverpool is 8 points behind Manchester United.
Schizophrenic.
You could say they're schizophrenic, right?
Yeah.
And that's the next topic that we're going to be talking about, but I'm starting with you with that. When you look at Manchester United's situation right now with all the injuries in midfield, do you think, and obviously after the massive 7-0 win, we'll chalk Bournemouth as an anomaly, as the Manchester United fans say the 7-0 is an anomaly. Do you have enough to challenge? Do you see this as an opportunity to close the gap or even get into top 4 by the time Casemiro comes back?
Listen, I don't think United's position has any bearing on Liverpool's season, personally. So our immediate competitors are Newcastle and Tottenham, of course. And it seems like a race to see who can lose the quickest route to the top 4. It's a ridiculous season in terms of consistency. I mean, we saw recently with Tottenham losing to Wolves and then bouncing back. We saw Newcastle going on that complete winless run and then finally doing what Spurs couldn't do against Wolves and beating them. And then we saw Liverpool losing 3-0 to Wolves. I mean, that's just one team which has done like all of this with our top 4 competitors. And then, I mean, we see all of these things with the injuries and how they're taking shape. Liverpool's season has been very much an attitude problem from the big players. And so I would actually be more confident in the run coming up against Arsenal, City, and Real Madrid than I would against any kind of lower team. It's ridiculous, but considering our 3 away games that we've won all season were against Spurs, Newcastle, and Aston Villa, we haven't beaten a team away lower than 11th place, which is shocking. And if you compare it to previous seasons, it's like, that's the difference between actually making Champions League spots and not. And the harder our games are, the better we'll perform. That's all I can say. So if we actually do have tough opponents, we'll rise to the occasion. But there's a huge mentality problem right now in the club.
Yeah, I just see the next 4 games we know the 3 games that Casemiro will be missing out on are, I think, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, and Man City away. So there are 3 big games that's
for Liverpool.
For Liverpool, because we talking about Liverpool maybe being able to catch up to United while Casemiro is suspended, but those are the 3 games they have to play in that time.
Yeah.
I just don't trust us after those games. That's the point. So in terms of consistency throughout, I just don't think that United is in our rearview mirror as far as the top 4 is concerned.
So, Jean, you mentioned that there was an attitude problem amongst the big players. Is it just I couldn't be bothered to pitch up for a soccer game? Oh, because this game is hard. It's 90 minutes. It's hard. I find it hard to believe that, guys are willing to just be like, it's fine. It's Bournemouth.
I'm looking particularly at Virgil van Dijk, Mohamed Salah, Fabinho, and even at times Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold. These are the guys who are supposed to be the spine of your team. And whether it's a case of burnout from last season where they nearly reached every single trophy available and they played 7 more games than any other team across Europe, as well as the fact that I guess, it could just be, long in the tooth with Klopp. And they are just getting, to the point where they need a little bit of freshness within the squad to look at and see, side to side, okay, our team is good enough to compete. I think there's something in the changing room which we're not quite seeing, but these big players are the ones who have let down the club over the last.
How much did Sadio Mane going affect that atmosphere in the dressing room? Huh? So where all the attention has always been on Mo Salah, was Sadio Mane maybe the glue holding all of this together, because it can't be coincidence that he leaves and it falls to shit.
Well, to be honest, it was already falling apart a little bit at the seams towards the end of last season. Even the Real Madrid game was kind of a sign of that. Like the players were shot mentally. You'll never know until like 10 years later when one of the players emerges from the changing room and says, back then, actually, Sadio was the glue that held us together mentally. And you did often see Sadio kind of, he was a big game player when it needed someone to step up. I think back to a game where Liverpool beat Norwich 1-0 on their way to winning the league. Sadio did an incredible turn and shot, and the game had nothing in it. Liverpool was absolutely paltry, and it needed someone to just spark it, and Sadio provided that. But I think the problems run much, much deeper than that. And I think the mentality has been slipping for quite a while, and it does come all the way from the owners down to the pitch side.
I have so many questions for Jean, but I'm going to go to Kent. Kent, when you look at this Liverpool side, right, and the way they've played, obviously you've got the two. Obviously they've got Chelsea, they've got Arsenal, they've got Manchester City. The way I look at it is that those three games are going to determine, well, the two of those three games are going to determine where the title's going to go. As an Arsenal supporter, do you think they're going to come up for that game? Do you think that because remember we played them at the Emirates and we beat them. That was great because we don't beat Liverpool often. But obviously Arsenal have that whole Anfield thing over the past 7 years. We haven't beaten them. Is this the moment where everybody thinks that Arsenal's going to derail, or do you think that Mikel Arteta's guys are going to get through this Liverpool side, even though they are big game players and they live for big games?
I think in this season, more than most seasons since I've been supporting Arsenal, I think we go into this game and you can't write us off immediately. We've just got it seems like there's a different mentality around the club. There's not this like bottling or crumbling in big games anymore. I think with Liverpool having the season they have, it puts a bit of doubt, and I think there's a bit of confidence in Arsenal coming. But having said that, we have to give Liverpool the respect they deserve at Anfield. They are a different animal at home, and they are a different animal against these bigger clubs. I think Liverpool plays City first. So let's say, hypothetically, City do drop points. It takes a bit of pressure off Arsenal because we will then go to Liverpool. And I think there will be even more hunger to maybe just keep up a 6-point or 8-point lead going into that game. We have to still play City as well.
With how bipolar Liverpool are, it's almost like if you probably wouldn't want to play them next. Like you wouldn't want to be their next game. You want to be after their next game, because
I think they bounce back.
They've trashed us. They've lost to Bournemouth. There's like what's to say they aren't going to like in the next game like give someone else.
That's Real Madrid.
The next one. That's how their season's been. Like they're going to give someone a hiding on the bounce and then lose stupidly a week after that.
I think they beat City, and I think the next week they lost to I think it was Leeds. So it was at home. So it's been a bit of a. I've been stumped about 3 times this season where I see Liverpool lose, and I say, okay, the next game they win, surely that was just a banana slip. They're going to be fine, and it's happened too often this season. Where at the point now, I think it's just a case of it must be a deep-rooted mentality issue or a deep-rooted issue. So like Jean was saying, I think it's more than just losing one player like Mane.
The other thing for me is what message does it send to a player like Gakpo, who comes into the side not knowing the dressing room drama, thinking obviously guys are tired, the season's going to turn around. Like how do you think he must be feeling right now? Do you think he thinks he made a mistake?
No,
and on top of that, how does that affect Jude Bellingham?
Bellingham's a different story, obviously, but Gakpo is probably not looking immediately at this season. everybody knows it's the worst kept hidden secret that Liverpool's looking for its biggest summer rebuild in like a decade coming up. There's plenty money in the kitty, which is now going to be available, but whether that is an enticing enough project for the likes of Bellingham, that remains to be seen, considering his father has met with Real Madrid on a couple of occasions already, and they've already laid out their kind of project. But it seems to be between Liverpool and Real Madrid. I'll get to Bellingham just now. No, Cody Gakpo, I think he's still finding his feet, even though, okay, we're about 8 games into his Premier League life. And I don't think he's looking at it as a short-term vision. I think it's very much like, you know what, whatever rubbish is going on this season, it will pass and we'll get back to a level which we need to. But it's just glaringly obvious in terms of midfield reinforcements, then that is just going to elevate the club massively, whether that's Bellingham or whoever. And I'm pretty sure like a person like Akpo is, he's not going to be too phased. And we've seen some real moments of quality in terms of his understanding of what he needs to do on the pitch. Against Bournemouth, it was just a case where nothing clicked. And that literally stems from your big players just not giving a toss. So Gakpo is kind of, he's on the periphery.
Is there a problem above that, though? If the big players are not giving a toss, does that not speak to a manager who's maybe lost his dressing room a little bit, who's unable to motivate his players? You should never be in a situation where you've lost your big players, where your big players are not putting in a shift. So that's happened at Man United very often. And then when I see that sort of seems to be the indication that the manager's time is up, because we can't recycle a squad every single season. And if the manager's lost his players now, there's not going to change in 3 months' time. He's not going to be able to suddenly click a switch and re-motivate players. So has Klopp's, from what you're describing, and I know that it's Klopp and the rules around Klopp are different because the rules around Sir Alex were different and the rules around Arsene Wenger were different. And Klopp has earned the right to be treated differently. But has he lost the dressing room? And would, in a normal scenario, the manager be showing the door in a situation like this?
I don't think he has, but I think that his role within the club has evolved to a point where he is directing things which he shouldn't be directing. Okay. He needs a sports director, and he's now almost got a little bit too much say, but he's also a bit probably distracted by his coaching role. And I would say you're correct if there was enough consistency to show that the players just didn't care throughout. But the problem is then you get these performances, which is just like, no, but obviously they care. They are going through, each of them individually, the big players, they are going through a mental relapse and then they're having to bring themselves back up. There's a lot of kind of growth and development, which they need, almost maturity, which I don't think that they've experienced before. I think this is a very unique case because it's very much about the club structures not being in place to kind of enable that stability.
I do want to ask a question because you talk about Klopp's coaching, but from my understanding, he doesn't do much coaching. Apparently, like I get the understanding that Pep Linders does a lot of the coaching. So, is there a problem there? Has the coaching become stale? Does he need to look at the coaches around him?
There have been words that, for instance, the fitness coaching has been by Andres Kornmeier has been very dictatorial, you can say. We saw a column in Melissa Reddy's reports for The Athletic, not for The Athletic, for Sky, pointing to that. And then you also heard that Pep Linders is kind of out of touch here and there ever since that book that he released on intensity, Liverpool's intensity. And if you actually see the graph, it's just spiraled down. And every single time that Liverpool has lost a match this season, they have run far, far less than the opposition. And that's literally just, it's so obvious that they just have to work harder. But what is going to make them work harder? And that's the bottom line, which we...
No, just take a mantra out of Eric Ten Hag's book. Just make them run 13 kilometers the next day.
That's not going to help. So
it did for United.
Yeah. So last one on Liverpool, Jean. Is Real Madrid in trouble? You've lost to Bournemouth. So you've beaten Manchester United 7. You've lost to Bournemouth. You go to the Bernabeu. Surely, based on the pattern, we're in for an incredible European night.
I think Liverpool could win 2-0, honestly. And I think Liverpool fans are the most in trouble because our hearts just can't take it anymore. Like it's ridiculous what we've had to go through this season. I wouldn't put it past us to go there and beat them solidly, but maybe just not enough to go through.
Yeah, they've done this before against Barca, though. So,
but not at Barca.
Do you want to stay in the Champions League for your season?
I really hope that you're 3-0 up and they score a last-minute goal. I really hope so.
Why are you like this?
This is why we can't have nice things, Wahid.
I really hope.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks, John. Okay. Cool. Kent. This season's been quite interesting, right? Obviously, Arsenal's been on top of the table and everything else, but from a relegation perspective, it's been quite a interesting one because you've gotten about 8 teams that are separated by 5 points, and it's one of the weirdest seasons I've experienced with relegation, because I think a team that's going to score 40 points is probably going to even get relegated because nobody wants to win games. It's like Liverpool: one game you'll win, one game you'll lose. It's up and down. So my question to you and everyone else is, to close out the show, who's going down? Guys are telling me Forest, who are like in 14th, and I'm like, but no, guys, they're in 14th. But what have you seen so far, and what do you think are the 3 that are going to go down?
I think certain clubs are in the mix there, but I don't think I think they will pull through at the end. But I think the 3 teams to go down will probably be Southampton, Leeds, and the third spot is a hard one, but I think Bournemouth also. So it's Southampton, Leeds, Bournemouth. Leeds is the one that I'm quite unsure about. It could be Everton. It could be, I don't know, Nottingham Forest. But I think a team like Everton shouldn't. They will flirt with it, and a team like West Ham will flirt with it, but they should be fine. And they just have a squad that should be able to pull through in the end. So I just feel those 3 teams I've mentioned now, their squads are just too light and dry. And I think it's just the next 11 games will be too much for them.
Jean, I know Bournemouth beat you over the weekend, but are they part of the 3 that you think are going down?
Oh man, it's a tough question. If they maintain their kind of attitude like they did against us, I don't think they would. But at the same time, again, there hasn't been that much consistency at the bottom, and you get results like Everton's win the weekend. You get results, like Leeds did beat Liverpool away. I mean, it can happen. I do think, though, that Bournemouth ultimately is going to be there or thereabouts. Don't discount West Ham, hey? They've been terrible.
Guys, David Moyes can't get relegated. Surely not.
So much joy to see him take West Ham down. After all the shit we've been told about, we should have given him more time. Seeing him take West Ham down would make me laugh my ass off. And then the cherry on the cake would be if Leeds go with them. Oh, geez, that would just be the best.
They're doing so well in Europe. I just don't understand it. So it's another story.
Yeah, the biggest issue I have with West Ham going down is they've spent so much money. The only good thing would be Lucas Paqueta is going to have to find a better club, and
Arsenal maybe.
I think Rice is the guy we're aiming or looking at.
Declan Rice is the guy we're looking for. But I don't like seeing Lucas Paqueta play for West Ham. It just hurts me. He should be like even players at Newcastle. You're like, I'm still trying to get used to all these good players playing at Newcastle. But my 3 is, I think it's Southampton. I think it might be Leeds. But the third one is Crystal Palace. Those guys haven't won a game in 2023. Those guys are struggling.
That's a big.
They can't score goals. They can't defend. Like, Patrick Vieira is great, but like he's not giving us much. The only good thing about watching Crystal Palace is that Albert Sambi is getting game time, but it's not helping them at all.
How much time does Patrick have?
I don't know. It depends on how this thing looks, right? So because they haven't won games, but they're still sitting in 12th, which is weird, right? And then so I'm expecting them, because they play Arsenal next, right? They lose to Arsenal. There's an international break. there will be some managerial changes in that international break for those guys at the bottom. I think Crystal Palace might just be one of them, just to make sure that they stay up, because I don't think they have it in them
Just
to
have to
go
look
for
at
the
the
next
goal
11.
difference, because Crystal Palace are on -12, and there's teams below them with way worse. Because there's a swing here, because Crystal Palace are in 12th and Bournemouth are in 18th. Bournemouth are only 3 points off Crystal Palace. So say Bournemouth win and Crystal Palace lose, that's a swing, okay? But you've got teams like Forest with -26. You've got teams with like Wolves with -17, who are way worse off than Crystal Palace. I'm not sure that they are the ones, but like their form is bad, but so far their points seem fine.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Some of these teams have conceded a whole lot of goals. The other wild thing is, what is Chris Wood doing at Nottingham Forest?
Well, Nottingham Forest had a bigger recruitment than Chelsea in terms of numbers. So
How many players was it again?
They're starting there that I forgot that they signed. Probably
even Andre Ayew's back. So one last thing quickly: are Chelsea back? Is Potter safe? Wahid?
I don't know if they're back. He is safe. I think I got it wrong a couple of weeks ago, and I said he wouldn't. I definitely got it wrong. But I think Kent was definitely right there to say that this seems like a project, and they're going to back him to the end of the season no matter what. Are they back? I don't know. See, Kai Havertz is scoring a lot, and we all know what I've generally said about Kai Havertz in the past. I just don't think he's that good, and he seems to be scoring a few. So are they back? I'm not sure. I will say this about Chelsea, is that they remind me a lot of Man United over the last 5, 6, 7 years. They've spent a lot of money, but I look at the team and I'm just not sure it's great. Like, they've spent so much money on players who are just above average. I'm not sure their scouting is that great. Are they signing players who generally you wouldn't associate with a club like Chelsea? And there might be these B+ type players, but not necessarily the A-level players you need at a club like that. And it seems like a weird scattergun like Football Manager approach to this, where you're hoping for the long-term gain, but the short-term is absolutely ridiculously bad.
Yeah, the pricing of the players that they have recruited as well, I think, we're just so inflated. So it gives a false sense of where their team should be or how good their squad is. They haven't intelligently added to their squad where there's a good spine of players with experience, and adding youngsters so that it's kind of been a bit of a let's just give as many contracts to players that we have targeted as quick as possible. And
it seems like Ed Woodward is there running the show, just in the background without being named. It really seems like an Ed Woodward run club.
Yeah,
I still think Christopher Nkunku could be quite an interesting piece to the puzzle when he joins in the summer. So we'll see if that kind of does gel things together.
74th left winger that they have in their squad.
Yeah. But they might change his position. But again, the vision, at least from a neutral perspective, none of us can see the vision at all.
Chelsea have always had a very, very hungry striker, like a Drogba, like a Diego Costa, and I can't see that in Havertz. I can't see a striker that's going to get them 20.
They don't have a striker. Even in Nkunku, you talk about him as a striker, but he's not. He's an attacking midfielder who can play as a striker. They have too many players who can play as a striker and no strikers.
Yeah.
But Aubameyang is there, not being used. The thing for me is that this is Project 2030. So when I look at Chelsea signings, I'm like, okay, will this guy pop in 4 years? That's how I see it. So
those projects, the problem is when you talk about a Project 2030, it's it's always 4 years away. Those projects are always 4 years away. There's never a present. Whenever you have players like that project always seems within touching distance, but never quite materializing. And that's the problem with a project like that, where you're not adding good, experienced players to a squad. And I know I questioned the Casemiro signing big time, but it's actually I was completely wrong about that. But it's the type of signing sometimes you need to gel the young players in the team. And Chelsea just aren't doing that. They're not getting that type of player to sort of bind it all together. They keep adding new 21-year-olds at £75 million to their squad.
But they've got some of these older players in and around the squad. they still have their squad's pretty bloated. Jean, do you think it's like a managerial issue that Harry Potter or Graham Potter doesn't want to bring them in? Because you've got
I do, or I mean, and this has been an ongoing theme since Bowley took over. You kind of wonder how much say the manager actually has, and who's a Potter signing and who's a Bowley signing, and why the player has actually come in. Joao Felix, I can't place him. Enzo is the only player which I could say has significantly, stamped his authority on the Chelsea team since signing for Potter.
Is he a £121 million player? Is he that good?
No. The market is obscene, and unfortunate for anyone chasing Bellingham now. That's kind of pegged to that price. But Fofana is another one. He's played decently, but he's just been injured, so we don't know. Cucurella has been shocking.
There's the other Fofana as well.
Yeah.
David Fofana, yeah. I think Koulibaly has been a horrific signing.
That has been awful. And
he was rated one of the best defenders, I think, pretty much from 2017, 2018. Then you also have Mudryk, who they spent 100 million on, who he can't start. I do know that you need to give a player as young as him some time, but to have spent 100 million and then still say you need to be patient, I just feel maybe the thing is.
You still have Thiago Silva, you still have N'Golo Kante, you still have Kovacic, you still have all these other older players in and around the squad. The question is, is it a Brighton situation where he just wants to play with kids? Because that's what Brighton was. And the other situation is, I know Todd Bowley likes young kids, but surely for the sake of staying in Europe and keeping your revenue up, you'd want a mix between the two.
Yeah. I think it's just been too much too quickly. N'Golo Kante is struggling with to even play if he wanted to. I think Thiago Silva was a massive blow to their to that having that experience. But to be fair, since Silva's been injured, they've actually started winning games, which is weird. I don't think Chelsea have had a problem with their defense this season necessarily. It's been mostly scoring goals. They've also had wing backs that have come back with Reece and with Chilwell, and they seem to be scoring goals against. So I think maybe the loss of injuries and those injuries coming back, they just should never have been 10th with the squads they have, and that's why I just knew at some point it will start to gel. But Chelsea have Liverpool coming up. The last time they played, it was a proper mid-off, and no team was in form. But maybe, I can't say it again for Liverpool if that will now kick off this season, but maybe that's the time where we can say Chelsea have seemed to find their bearings or not.
But top four.
What did Mason Mount do to, or is we've now realized that Mason Mount's not a great player?
Mason Mount got found out. He was a fraud, and I think it's just been shown upon him. He doesn't want to sign a contract apparently to put him on 180k a week, which I think is
Liverpool signing.
I've seen Liverpool linked to him, and I just want to make sure we keep our hands off him. I just think he was never as a creative kind of player that Chelsea fans touted him out to be, and I think he's being exposed a bit now.
I think Klopp could turn him into an Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain injury-free, quite honestly.
So not very good.
Yeah,
decent enough for the squad, but nothing, homegrown, which is also what we need.
Yeah, but he comes at a price tag, I think. I think he's only got a year left, so it might come
50 million is what's been quoted now, but
for Mason Mount,
Mason Mount's 50 million, which is what has been.
Right, he's like the attacking Scott McTominay.
30 million, I'd say fine, go for it. But anything over that,
he's got a year left as well. Which is insane.
Yeah, Newcastle, I think will go for him. I think it makes sense for Newcastle.
That makes a lot of sense. Like Newcastle are just going to be like going after that caliber of player until they solidify a top 4 spot. At which point they can probably look for better established stars.
Which is why a West Ham relegation works.
Yeah, they can just work. Players that deserve to go to clubs like Arsenal and maybe. Who else? I think the next topic, when we know which teams look to be relegated, is which players in those teams deserve Premier League transfers in the summer to stay in the Prem, because there is some talent in those teams.
James Ward-Prowse also screams Newcastle. Like Southampton go down, Newcastle take him, and he smashes in a bunch of free kicks. Imagine having Trippier and Ward-Prowse.
You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I think let's end it there. Thank you very much for joining. It was a really great conversation. And yeah, enjoy the week. We've got a international break after this. Wahid's playing FA Cup against Fulham on the weekend, so Mitrovic is gonna go a little bit crazy. And what's this? Oh yes, you have Real Betis on the weekend. But John, good luck. On Wednesday, it's gonna be probably one of your best nights ever.
Ridiculous. Expect chaos.
Yeah.
But outside of that, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good one. Goodbye, good night, and le sale, cacafiso.